I am 68 years old, and I live by myself in a second-floor apartment on Fulton Street. There were 2 of us in that house for 30 years, and I was never more alone in my life. I want to say that again, because it took me until 68 to be able to say it at all. I was never more alone than I was inside my own marriage with my husband in the very next room. Tonight I am going to give you the 5 things I understood, and I am going to say them plain. What loneliness actually measures, what the silence at dinner really was and who built it, why leaving felt impossible for so long, the difference between alone and lonely, which I had backward, and the last one, which is who I was waiting on for 30 years without ever saying the name. I will also tell you what the first year by myself actually looked like, hour by hour, and the one thing I would drive back and tell myself at 50 if I could find the road. Stay with me. I am not going to dress it up, and I am not going to tell you what to do. Let me tell you who is talking, so you know exactly what these words are worth. I am not a doctor, and I am not a counselor. I never studied 1 page about marriage. I cut cloth at a fabric store on the square for 22 years, and I was good at it. Bolts of cotton, a yardstick screwed to the counter, and shears I would not let anybody borrow. My husband's name is Gerald. Everybody called him Jerry. He is still living up in Bakerstown. We married when I was 35, which felt late back then, and we stayed married 30 years. He never hit me. He never drank. He never once raised his voice in all that time. I need you to hear that because it is the whole reason this took me 30 years to name. There was nothing to point at. No black eye, no empty bank account, no woman across town. When there is nothing to point at, you decide the problem must be you. I decided that for years. We had a daughter, Nora. She is 31 now and lives out in Fort Collins with her family. Here is what our house sounded like, and I want you to listen because some of you know it. Dinner at 6, 2 plates. The refrigerator would kick on, and that was the loudest thing there. I would ask about his day, and he would say, "Fine." I would say, "Mine too." Then forks. Not angry forks, ordinary ones. The sound of 2 people eating food that one of them cooked. After the dishes, he went to the den and turned on the television, and I stayed in the kitchen. I kept a radio on the windowsill with a bent antenna, turned low so it would not bother him. 2 rooms, 1 house. 1 wall between us made out of drywall, and 30 years of good manners. That was our evening, honey. Not one evening, every evening from about our 4th year on. Here is the part I was wrong about, and I carried the wrong idea like a purse I never set down. I thought loneliness was a thing that happened to women who did not have anybody at all. Widows, the never married, the ones whose children moved off and did not come back much. I thought a wedding ring was proof you were not lonely. Proof, like a receipt in a drawer. So when the ache showed up in my chest at 48, I could not name it. I had the proof. I had a husband, a house, a daughter, a job. There was no blank on that form for what I felt. A woman with all that does not get to be lonely, I told myself. She gets to be ungrateful. So I called it ungrateful for 17 years. That is what I called it, right up to the end. And I want to tell you what it cost, because nobody adds that up while it is being spent. It cost me my own voice. Not all at once, in pieces so small you could not photograph one. The first thing I understood is that loneliness is not about how many people are in your house. It is about whether you can say one true sentence out loud and have it land on somebody. That is the whole measure. I lived with a man, and my true sentences had nowhere to go. I would think something real at the sink and then run it through a little machine in my head. Will this start something? Will he go flat and quiet for 2 days? Is it worth 2 days? Almost nothing was worth 2 days. So the sentence went back down, and I washed the pan. Do that 4 or 5 times a week for 30 years, and you stop knowing what you think. There is a woman inside you who knows, and she gets tired of never being called on. Eventually, she quits raising her hand. People hear that and call it a peaceful marriage. The second thing I understood is that silence does not arrive. It gets built, one piece at a time. Nobody wakes up and stops talking to their husband. You just take one topic off the table. For us, the first one was money, in about our 2nd year, after a fight over a used car. We never solved it. We agreed, without ever saying so, to not open that drawer again. Then his mother went on the list. Then the way he spoke to Nora when he came home tired. Then my sister. Then what I wanted for my birthday. Then whether either of us was happy. By the end, the table held the weather, the driveway, and what I was making for supper. A marriage will run for years on the weather and the driveway. That is what frightens me now. It runs. It does not stop. Nothing dramatic happens. Your room just gets smaller and smaller. The third thing I understood is why leaving felt impossible. And it was not one big reason. People imagine there is a wall, a cruel man, no money, a family that would not stand for it. Mine was nothing that solid. It was about 40 small reasons, standing there holding hands. I made $11 an hour cutting cloth, and the house sat in both of our names. My mother stayed married to my father for 51 years, and she was not a happy woman. Nora was in school, and then Nora was in college, and then Nora was getting married herself. And the biggest one, the one I am ashamed of, I had already spent 30 years on it. 30 years is an awful lot to walk away from. So I stayed in order to protect the 30 years, which meant I spent year 31 protecting year 30. That is how it works, sweetheart. The longer it runs, the more expensive quitting looks, and the more you pay to keep going. The fourth thing took me until my 2nd winter alone to finally get my hands around. Being alone and being lonely are not the same thing, and I had them turned exactly backward. Alone is a Tuesday afternoon with nobody here and the radio up as loud as I want it. Alone, I can work with. I can telephone somebody. I can walk down and talk to whoever is out. Lonely is different. Lonely is a person 9 feet away who has decided not to know you today. There is no fixing that from your side of the room. I tried for years, and I want them back. You cannot make a person open up. You can only quit standing out there in the cold, waiting. That is the sentence it took me 30 years and one divorce to be able to say out loud. The fifth thing I understood is that I was waiting on permission and never said from whom. I believe I was waiting for Jerry to say, "You are unhappy. Go on and have yourself a life." He was never going to say it. He did not know he was supposed to. Nobody had told him either. And some part was waiting to get so miserable that the decision would make itself for me. It does not make itself. It sits. It will sit there until you are 80 and still be sitting. At 65, I quit waiting. Not because I got brave, because I got tired in a brand new way. It was a Thursday in March. I was folding a fitted sheet, which nobody on this earth does well, and I heard myself say out loud, to nobody at all, "I cannot do this for 10 more years." That was it. No slammed door, no thrown dish. A woman with a sheet talking to a bedspread. I telephoned Nora that Sunday and said it out loud to her. It took me 4 tries to finish. Now let me tell you what the first year by myself looked like, because people lie about this. They tell you it is freedom, and it is, eventually. That is not what the first months are. My first night here, I sat on a mattress on the floor with a lamp that had no shade on it, 1 suitcase, a box of kitchen things, and a folding chair Nora's husband carried up the stairs. At about 9 o'clock, the refrigerator kicked on, and I nearly came out of my skin. It was the first sound in that place I had not made myself. I laughed. Then I did not. I hardly slept for 2 weeks. When I did sleep, I slept sideways across the bed, because I could. That whole first month I ate standing at the counter, out of the pan, like a woman camping. I did not know how to cook for 1. 30 years of cooking for 2 does not come apart easy. In the 4th week, I stood in the grocery store and cried over a can of split pea soup. Jerry liked split pea. I never once bought it for myself in my life. It was on sale that day. A young man in an apron asked if I was all right, and I said, "Yes, sugar, I am new at this." That is the truth of it. At 65, I was brand new at something, and there is no class. Winter was the hard part. It goes dark at 4:30 here, and the evening is very long. I made 1 rule that first winter, and it is the only rule I ever kept for a whole year. Every single day, I had to say 1 real sentence to 1 real person, out loud, face to face. Not the cashier, not hello. 1 sentence with something true inside it, out of my mouth. Some days that meant telling the woman at the post office I was having a rough afternoon. Some days it meant telling Nora on the telephone that I missed her father's hands, not his quiet. It sounds small. It was not small. It was like using an arm that had been in a sling for years. Marguerite came out of the laundromat on Fulton Street in February, and she is my friend now. She told me her whole life over 2 loads of towels, and I told her most of mine. She had done the same thing at 61. She said, "The first year you were hauling furniture. The second year," she said, "you start arranging it." She was right about that, and about most things. That second year, I painted this kitchen yellow, and I did not ask 1 single person first. Now, I want to be careful here, because some of you are hearing me from a kitchen with a man in it. I am not telling you to leave your husband. I want that said clearly, and I want it said early. I do not know your life. I do not know your money, your health, your church, or your heart. Plenty of women hear what I am describing and go home and start talking instead of packing. That is a better ending than mine, and I mean it. Talking is cheaper than a moving truck. So here is what I would try first if I were 50 again and sitting where you are sitting. I would pick one thing I stopped saying out loud, and I would put it back on the table. Not the biggest one, not 30 years of it in one night. That turns into a fight, not a talk. One medium-sized true thing. I miss going places with you. That is a whole beginning right there. Say it at a time when nothing is wrong, not after a fight, not at 11 o'clock at night. Then be quiet and let it sit there, even if the quiet lasts longer than you can stand it. Watch what he does with it. That is your information, not what he says, what he does after. Some men pick it up. Mine could not, and I do not think he knew how, and that is its own sadness. But you will know, and knowing is not nothing. I lived without knowing for a long time. There is one more thing I would do, and this is for the women who are already on their own. Call the friend you let drift, not to explain the 3 quiet years, just to say her name. I called a woman named Peg, who I had not spoken to since Nora's wedding, and I said, "It is me." She said, "Well, it took you long enough." Then we talked for an hour and 40 minutes. I had been carrying a story that she was angry with me. She was not. She had been waiting. A lot of the people we think are gone are not gone. They are as embarrassed as we are. Let me tell you why I think this happens, because I've had 3 years to sit and think. We do not go quiet because we stopped loving somebody. We go quiet to keep the peace in the house. Every sentence we swallow feels like a small kindness at the time, a gift that nobody sees. But you cannot buy peace with pieces of yourself and still have yourself at the end of it. I paid for 30 years of quiet evenings with every true thing I never said. It was too much. And here is what I understood at 68, and it was not anything I expected to understand. Jerry telephoned me in April about Nora's birthday dinner. We talked about the parking. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "The house is awful quiet." And his voice did something on that word. I sat down on a kitchen chair, in that yellow kitchen I painted myself, and I finally saw it. He had been lonely in that house, too, for 30 years, in a chair 9 feet from mine. He never said it either, not one time. He did not have the words any more than I had them. 2 people, 2 armchairs, 1 television that neither of us was really watching at all. Both of us starving at the same table, and each of us certain the other one was fine. I am not angry at him anymore. That went out of me the day I understood he was in there with me. That is not forgiveness in the church sense. It is simpler. It is just seeing the thing straight. He was not holding out on me. He was raised to keep it in, same as I was raised to keep it in. If either one of us had said one true sentence out loud in our 4th year, who knows? I will never know now. And I have made a kind of peace with never knowing on most days. So here is the one thing I want you to do tonight, and it is small enough that you can do it. Name one thing you stopped saying out loud. just the one. You already know what it is. You knew it before I finished the sentence. It came up in you like a name you would not say. Write it on the back of an envelope if you cannot say it to a person yet. Get it out of your body. Then decide, someday soon, who deserves to hear it. Your husband? Your daughter? A friend? It might be a woman coming out of a laundromat who turns out to be your best friend, my dear. I am 68 years old. I lost 30 years to a silence that the two of us were keeping. And I am telling you from a yellow kitchen with the radio up loud that it is not too late. Not at 50, not at 68, not at 80. Your clock starts over the day you say it. That is what I would drive back and tell the woman I was at 50, if I could find the road. I would tell her, you are not ungrateful. You are unheard. Those are two different things entirely. And I would tell her that the quiet she is keeping is not saving anybody, least of all her marriage. If any of this sat down beside you tonight, subscribe and stay with me. We will keep talking here. Next time, I am going to tell you about the first Christmas I spent alone and what I got wrong. Pull your blanket up, turn the light off,